Okay, it's time again for the Press Box Podcast. This is episode number 98. Today is our weekly NFL recap. We'll be recapping week number 4 in the NFL. Lots of great games, a few surprises, some not so surprising. Some teams are starting to show their strength and show their muscle. Other teams, a lot of question marks are starting to come up. And then other teams, to quote our famous Dennis Green from many years ago, other teams are what we thought they were. So lots of great games from week 4. Nathan and I will also talk about some upcoming games this week in week 5. We've got an exciting show for you. We love to talk NFL football, and we're glad you're going to join us. Remember, hit us up on Twitter at PressBoxPod, hit us up on Instagram at PressBoxPod, and hit us up on the PressBox Podcast YouTube channel. So without further ado, episode number 98 of the PressBox Podcast. Okay, welcome back to the Press Box Podcast. This is episode number 98. I'm your co-host, Ralph Miranda. I'll be joined by my producer, Nathan Miranda, and today is our weekly NFL recap. Today we'll be recapping week number 4 of the National Football League that was concluded last week. And we're starting to see some pulling away of the better teams, and we're just like in college football. As weeks go by, we start to see which teams look like they're going to be for real, which teams look like they're not going to be for real. A quick example is the Buffalo Bills, right? I mean, the Buffalo Bills lost opening day to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they only scored, I think, 10 points or 13 points, and everybody thought, oh my goodness, what's wrong with the Bills? Well, they've won three in a row, and they've outscored their opponents in those 3 games like 76-0. So obviously the Bills are for real, and that was just an aberration. And then we look at other teams that have had some injuries. Take the Pittsburgh Steelers, for example. I mean, everybody thought the Steelers, after drafting Najee Harris at running back to improve their running game, Ben Roethlisberger that came back, everybody thought healthy. Everybody thought the Steelers were going to contend for the Central Division, the North Division. But they are now sitting at 1-3, 2 games behind the 3 teams that are tied for first place, the Browns, the Bengals, and the Ravens. So those are just 2 examples of how things are starting to shake out. And Nathan, let's talk a little bit about week 4. Anything that kind of stood out to you in week 4 as far as some of the results that we saw?
You just talked about the Bills. They were favored by, I think, 18 points or something.
They were.
Against the Texans, which was high.
Right.
But I figured they would probably cover that, but I didn't know it was going to be 40-0. That was impressive. And that's what the great teams do, right? Like when they play a team that is not too good like the Texans, they kill them. They blow them out. And
right.
The Bills, I don't know if I really saw them as one of those types of great teams that blow teams out.
Right.
But they did. So that was impressive. What else stood out? Let's see. With the Giants being the Saints, I know we'll get into that.
Yes.
It took them overtime to do it, but hey, they beat the Saints still. That was their first win, right?
Yes, it was.
So that, I mean, the Saints, I think we said this after week 1, but week 1 was a mirage for the Saints.
Yeah,
I mean,
it was.
But still, though, they're pretty good. They're a decent team.
They are.
The Giants didn't beat a nobody team.
No, you're right.
The Jets being the Titans was really shocking to me.
Right.
I mean, the Jets have that rookie quarterback. I think he threw the week before this past week, he threw 4 picks or something.
The Patriots, yeah.
That was Belichick, the Patriots. But
right.
Still, he's a rookie quarterback. So
right.
I didn't think they were going to beat the Titans.
What did you think about Thursday night? I mean, the Bengals were down. They were down 14-0 at the half, and came back and won that game 24-21. I think Joe Burrow, coming back off his ACL injury from last year, everybody wondered if he was the guy, but it looks like he's starting to get command of that team and may end up being a really good quarterback.
Well, yeah, I mean they needed to win that game. They're playing the Jaguars.
Right.
I mean, yeah, I think I've thought. I mean, even after I know he had the injury. Was it last year? Right.
Last year, right.
But even before the injury, I thought he looked good, and he's looking pretty good this year. So I think I'm big on Joe Burrow. I think he's going to be a really good quarterback. But I'm not like too impressed with them coming back to beat the Jaguars. I mean,
right.
They should have been down 14-0 at halftime. I mean, like,
well, that's true. Yeah.
But for a while when I was checking in on that game, I thought the Jaguars were going to win, which would have been an upset. But
right.
But what are some of the main games you want to discuss?
Yeah. I think I'll kind of touch on some of the things that you touched on. The Bills. Obviously, as I said, Week 1 losing to the Steelers, not looking very good offensively. But they beat the Dolphins then 35-0. They beat the Washington football team 42-21 or 43-21, and then of course they just shut out the Texans 40-0. So the Bills look to be who they thought they were, to paraphrase Denny Green from many years ago. And the Bills, everybody expected them to be good, right? I mean, they got to the AFC Championship game last year. Everybody thinks this is the year maybe that they can get over the hump. And we're going to find that out this coming week when they play the Kansas City Chiefs on Sunday night. That's going to be a key game for them and for the Chiefs, for that matter. The Chiefs. Let's talk about the Chiefs a little bit.
Before we get to that, I was going to say, I'm looking forward to seeing the Bills-Chiefs game because the Bills, they lost the Steelers Week 1, right?
Right.
That was odd, right?
Right.
But then, like you said, they 35-0 against the Dolphins, 43-21 against Washington, 40-0 against the Texans.
Right.
But all three of those teams are not really
that good.
The top tier NFL teams, especially the Texans and the Washington, really not that good at all.
Mm-hmm.
So have they really beaten a solid team yet? I don't know. So and the fact that they blew these games out makes you believe that they would beat a solid team.
Right.
But yeah, this Bills Chiefs game, I was really interested to see how they play against the Chiefs. But go on to head to the Chiefs.
No. What I was going to say about the Chiefs was, believe it or not, they're 2-2, and they're in last place in their division. Now, obviously, that's a little bit misleading, but because it's still early. But you got the Broncos, the Chargers, and the Raiders are all 3-1. So the Chiefs only a game behind, but they did lose to the Chargers a week ago. Which puts them kind of one game down in that division. They haven't played the Raiders or the Broncos yet. The Chiefs, everybody says the Chiefs are going to be fine. And yeah, they scored 42 points this week and beat the Eagles 42-30. And they did that without Travis Kelce really being as productive as he usually is. But Tyreek Hill was the guy that kind of went off last Sunday. The Chiefs' offense is kind of like a video game offense. They're going to score their points, all right? But what I'm concerned about is their defense. And I think the Chiefs might be in a little bit of trouble this year because their defense is not very good at all. And you're going to have to stop some people. I mean, there's just no way around it. I know they've gotten by with it the last 3 years, but all it takes is a game where a Travis Kelce doesn't do well or a Tyreek Hill pulls a hamstring or something like that. And now you're up against the 8 ball. But we're going to find out about the Chiefs Sunday night, too, because this is a game of two teams that played for the AFC Championship last year. One that looks to be on a roll in the Bills. The other one that looks to be trying to right the ship and stay relevant. I think the winner of that game is going to come out feeling pretty good about themselves.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to, like you said, I guess the Chiefs have been getting by with the defense they have the last few years. But
right.
It's hard to really imagine a team going deep in the playoffs that has given up in the first 4 weeks 29 points, 36 points,
right.
30 points, 30 points.
Right, exactly.
And they can't really afford to go 2-3. I feel like because the Chargers play the Browns. I think the Chargers should win that game, but the Browns are 3-1 also.
Right.
So that might be a little tough. The Chargers can maybe drop to 3-2. Let's see who the Raiders play next week. The Raiders play. They're 3-1 also.
They play the Bears.
They play the Bears, so yeah. I think they should win that game.
Right.
So my point is, I mean, I think it's likely the Raiders and Chargers both win, so they can improve to 4-1. And if the Chiefs lose, they drop to 2-3. I mean, it's not. It's as each week goes by, it's looking worse and worse for the Chiefs to win the division.
No, it really does. And
the Broncos, I'm not too concerned about, to be honest. For whatever reason, they're not going to stay where they're at in my mind.
No, they play the Steelers this week, and I think that's going to be an interesting game because it's in Pittsburgh. Let me step back. I think the two games you mentioned, the Chargers and the Raiders, not so much the Raiders because they're playing the Bears. Bears have announced that Justin Fields is going to be their starter for the rest of the season. So They're playing a rookie quarterback. I think the Raiders probably win that game without too much trouble. But I think the other two games are going to be interesting because You've got the Broncos at the Steelers, and you've got the Chargers hosting the Browns. Now, the reason I say they're going to be interesting is because you look at the Chargers playing the Browns. That's a key game for both teams, right? The Browns are 3-1, the Chargers are 3-1. The loser of that game, the question marks are starting to come out, especially if it's the Browns. You know, last week they struggled to beat the Vikings. Baker Mayfield did not have a good game, even by his own admission. He played very poorly. Jarvis Landry is still out. Beckham played, but they did not. They struggled to beat the Vikings.
They struggled to beat the Texans.
Correct. So if they lose this game, I think you're going to start to see, hey, are the Browns really? Do they really have a chance to go as far as people thought they did? Now, if the Browns win this game, I think you're going to start wondering about the Chargers, is can they win that division? So that's going to be a very, very important game, even though it's only week 5. The other one is obviously the Chiefs, the Chiefs and the Bills, but also the Broncos at the Steelers. And why do I say that? Well, if the Steelers lose this game at home, they're 1-4. And you can pretty much kiss goodbye any chance of them winning the division, all right? The Broncos, we said we don't know if they're for real or not. If they win, hey, you got to give them kudos and say, hey, they got a chance to win this division. If they get blown out or get beat rather badly, then that kind of questions their validity.
Well, first of all, I think I'm going to predict. I think the Steelers win this game. All right,
I think so too.
I think they've underperformed the last few weeks, the Steelers. So I think they're a little better than what they've shown. I think the Broncos have overperformed. But maybe not even so much overperformed. I mean, look at the Broncos. They beat the Giants week 1.
Right.
They beat the Jaguars. And they beat the Jets.
Right.
3 of the worst teams in the NFL. No offense to you.
No, you're right.
And then the Ravens beat them 23-7.
Right.
So I think I think they're just going through kind of the easy part of their schedule, and they're winning as they should, but that's all that is.
That's right.
So the Steelers is the first game, I would say, outside the Ravens, which they lost, where it's a little bit better of a team. Even though the Steelers are not that great, I'm no matter what happens this week, especially if the Broncos win, though, they got to then play the Raiders.
Right.
Let's see what they do in that game.
Right.
And I think you'll see in that game. I think the Raiders are going to kill them.
Yeah, and based on everything you just said, I think the Broncos. I agree with everything you said. I think the Raiders are a really good team, but having watched them Monday night against the Chargers, I just don't get the feeling that the Raiders can win that division, okay?
Yeah.
I really think the Chargers are going to be the key to this. They have tremendous talent on offense. They have a really good defense, and they've already beaten the Chiefs. So I think that next game between the Chargers and the Chiefs later in the season is really going to be a very important game. Let's look at some other things here. The Jets, you mentioned the Jets and the Titans. I had a feeling that the Jets were going to at least cover the spread last week.
Really?
And the reason I say that is because the Titans were without both of their starting receivers. Julio Jones was out. A.J. Brown was out. I had a feeling they were going to struggle throwing the football. And I thought if the Jets put 8 guys in the box, maybe they can slow down Derrick Henry. And that's exactly what they did. The game did go into overtime. The Jets had a lead and could have salted it away and couldn't do it. But they did win the game and got their first win. What's his name? The quarterback, Zach.
For the Jets.
Yeah, Wilson. That's right, Zach Wilson. He did play very well. He came back very nicely and played a decent game.
Isn't it impressive too? The Titans had a diminished receiving core, so they were going to have to rely on Henry.
Right.
Well, you think the Jets knew that, right? And Henry still had 33 carries for 157 yards.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, but you know something.
Overtime, but
but 33 carries for 157 yards.
It's a lot of carries.
Is a lot of carries.
Yeah.
I remember when we played Texas in the Cotton Bowl, Earl Campbell was the running back, and he was the Heisman Trophy winner. He got 116 yards, but it took him 36 carries to do it. So the concept is, he's going to get his yards, but don't let him get him at 5-6 carries.
I mean, typically, Henry could get 157 yards on 20 carries.
Exactly, right.
So to take him 33 carries,
that's exactly that's still pretty good. That's still 5 yards a carry, but still, that is considered stopping Derrick Henry, if it makes any sense. Okay. Another team that I thought had high expectations coming into the season, but of course their quarterback's hurt, is the Dolphins. The Dolphins beat the Patriots week 1. We thought, hey, this team, they were in the mix for the playoffs last year, but they seem to be struggling quite a bit right now. And the Dolphins are 1-3.
They're about to drop to 1-4. About to drop the Buccaneers.
That's right. Tua is hurt, and again, it brings up question marks of. Tua is a kind of not a real big quarterback, so is he going to be injury prone? So I think the Dolphins are struggling right now to wonder, to find their identity, really. I mean, and like you said, they play the Buccaneers this week, and they play them. I believe they play them in
Tampa.
In Tampa. Okay, so that's going to be an interesting game. Let's talk a little bit about the Sunday night game last week, the Buccaneers and the Patriots. That was a game that was, gosh, I mean, it was hyped so much. The return of Tom Brady to Gillette Stadium. In fact, Tom Brady even admitted that he was probably more nervous for that game than he was for any other, because he was going back to a place where there were so many people that had touched his life and that he touched their life and so forth and so on. In fact, the story came out that his wife on Friday, the Friday before the game, of course they flew to New England on Saturday, his wife took the kids and went away for the entire day so that he could be by himself all day Friday and focus on the game coming up. So I thought that was kind of interesting. It was a really good football game. Tom Brady is Tom Brady, but I got to give Belichick credit. I mean, they threw so many different defenses at Brady, and it wasn't so much that Brady didn't recognize them. It was they changed every play. Brady could never get a true read about what they were going to do in certain situations, right? And that's what makes Tom Brady so good. Once he figures out what you're doing, you're done, okay? And they changed it enough and in ways that maybe confused him just enough where he had to make his reads post-snap as opposed to pre-snap. He had a good game, but he missed a lot of throws, Brady. But he did lead them down for the game-winning field goal, and then, of course, the Patriots missed a 56-yard field goal that would have won it for them. But I was really impressed with the rookie quarterback, Mac Jones. I mean, they didn't ask him to throw the ball downfield very much, but he looked like the same plays that Tom Brady used in New England, and he did a great job. I mean, he stood in the pocket, he took the rush, he took a bunch of hits. I think they've got them a quarterback there that's going to help them for years to come.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think he's one of the better young quarterbacks in the league, it looks like right now. But yeah, Belichick, you would think he should know how to stop Brady, right? I mean, he coached him for all these years.
That's right.
I mean, kudos for him for I guess going out on a limb and doing something completely different here, but. I would hope he would know how to have an insight. If anybody does, it would be him.
Right. But you would also expect Brady to have an insight to Belichick's mind, right? A little bit?
That's true. But even if Brady knew going in, okay, he's going to change the defense on me every play. You don't know what's going to be. It's still confusing to you. I mean, you might know what to expect, but,
And Belichick knows... This is going to sound weird, but Belichick knows whatever weaknesses Brady has, right? Yeah. So he knows what to exploit.
And I think Brady had kind of a good comment. I think... I heard him say something to the effect after the game of he knows now why it's so hard to go in there and win games all these years. Now he has to do it.
That's right.
He realizes now why it's so hard. But I think I'm looking at the box score. I think one of maybe the biggest difference of the game is that Tampa Bay had 120 yards total rushing. Mm-hmm. New England had -1.
Right. They couldn't run the ball at all. Yeah.
I mean, that right there is pretty much the key. In a game that's 2-point difference, that's kind of the key to the game.
Right.
They didn't even really try to. They had 8 carries, New England.
Well, they couldn't do it. The Buccaneers were taking it away. I mean, there's just no way.
The Bucs have a good defense.
They have a great defense.
They're the best team in the league right now.
Yeah, I agree with that. And they also just signed... who did they sign? Well, they signed Richard Sherman. He played Monday night or Sunday night.
Gilmore, they signed Gilmore?
I think they traded for Gilmore, I think.
Let me see here.
Somebody traded for him.
That was the Panthers.
That's right. Gilmore, that's right, yeah. One little side note, little interesting side note is by beating the Patriots Sunday night, Brady became the 4th quarterback in history to have beaten all 32 teams in the NFL. The other ones were Drew Brees, Peyton Manning, and Brett Favre. And that makes sense, right? Because Favre played most of his career with the Packers, but then went to the Vikings and beat the Packers.
Right.
Manning played most of his career with the Colts, then went to the Broncos and beat the Colts. And Drew Brees played most of his career with the Saints, but he did play with the Chargers, and then came back and beat the Chargers. So, a really interesting stat there, which only applies to a quarterback who has longevity and has changed teams at least once, right? Which is unusual for those kind of guys.
Yeah. I saw that on Instagram. That was pretty impressive.
Yeah.
I never really thought of that, but that makes sense that that Brady has beaten every team but the Patriots, that would make sense.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
now he's beating the Patriots. So
well, you take a guy like Eli Manning, right? I mean, Eli Manning was but he's never beat the Giants, right?
Like you said, like those three guys, Peyton, Favre, and Breeze, they played most of the Grizzlies with one team, but they switched teams.
Right, exactly.
That's how you get to do that, yeah.
Exactly, and if Aaron Rodgers goes somewhere else next year, he'll probably join that category. Yeah. That's right.
That's the guy I can see him playing for a different team in his career.
I can too. I'll tell you what I think is going to happen. This is a sidebar, not part of this podcast, but he's not going to be with the Packers next year. I think. I think what the 49ers, he wants to go to San Francisco. In fact, that's where he grew up. He wanted them to draft him, but they didn't back in 2005. They drafted Alex Smith, and in fact, I heard that he had mentioned to the 49ers during the summer that he'd like to go there. I think what the 49ers are going to do is they're going to play this Trey Lance this year, okay? And if he doesn't look like he's the guy, they're going to trade. They're going to get to Aaron Rodgers next year.
Even if he is, why not get Aaron Rodgers for a year or two? Let Trey Lance sit under Aaron Rodgers.
I agree. That'd be great. But that's just a little sidebar.
That'd be interesting. Didn't Brady kind of want to go to San Francisco?
He did. He grew up idolizing Joe Montana. Yeah. So he wanted to be a 49er as well. Let's look at the standings real quick before we go further. In the AFC, Buffalo, we talked about them. They're 3-1. Everybody else, Dolphins, Patriots, Jets are all 1-3. I think that division belongs to the Bills. The only question is, can one of these other teams, say maybe the Dolphins or the Patriots, get enough wins to maybe be in the mix for a wild card? You look at the North Division, the Bengals, Ravens, and Browns are all 3-1. Steelers are 1-3. I think the Bengals are going to have a good season. I don't see them really competing to win the division, but who knows, right? The Ravens and the Browns, I think, are the two teams that will come out of there, one winning the division, one wild card.
It'd be interesting to see if the Bengals can get the wild card spot. The Burrow make the playoffs in his second year after an injury like that.
That would be, yeah. And they've played very well. Look at the South Division. That's an interesting division, right? The Jaguars, forget about it. They're out of it. The Texans are out of it. They're 1-3. The Colts are 1-3.
That's surprising.
It is a little surprising, isn't it? I mean, I think with Carson Wentz, I guess he's been injured a little bit. This kind of brings up those questions. Is he really a guy now that can get it done?
And it looks like outside of Jacksonville, it looks like that division's up for grabs between those two teams. But really, in my mind, I feel like it's basically between Tennessee and Indianapolis. I don't think Houston. They have a record that looks like they're in it, but
they're out of it. Yeah, they're completely out of it. The only reason they won that one game is because they had Tyrod Taylor playing, and then he got hurt. And then the West, we talked about that. That's going to be a Chargers-Chiefs division. The Broncos, I think, are going to start going back to the norm, and I think the Raiders will be in the playoffs possibly, but they're not going to win the division. Well, let's look at the NFC. The NFC East, interesting division. The Cowboys are 3-1. They're kind of like the Bills. They lost that first game to the to the Buccaneers, but played very well, and then they've rattled off 3 wins since then. I think the Cowboys are going to win that division hands down. Yeah. Washington, they're going to be an average team. The Eagles, I'm sorry, they don't have it. And the Giants, regardless of their win over the Saints, the Giants do not have it. Their schedule is way too tough. So the Cowboys win that division. Packers have reeled off 3 wins since their loss, but the Packers have a tough game coming up, I believe. They play the Bengals this week, and then they play, the Bears. So, no, they don't really have it too tough coming up. So the Packers are going to win that division. The Bears are 2-2, but they're not indicative of that record. The Vikings, that's interesting. They're 1-3. You would have thought they would be better than that. The Lions 0-4. They're done. South Division, Buccaneers and Panthers are both 3-1, but I think the Panthers are going to revert back to the mean. Saints are 2-2. I don't see them challenging the Buccaneers, but you never know. Falcons 1-3. I think the Buccaneers are going to win that division. And then the West is really the interesting division. The Cardinals are the only undefeated team in the NFL right now. That's a little surprising to me.
That is
4-0. They beat the Rams pretty convincingly last week.
That was strange. Yeah, I thought they might win, but they beat him, like you said, convincingly.
Yeah, which, really was a little bit surprising because the Rams had beaten the Buccaneers the week before. But I think the Rams are still going to challenge for that division at 3-1. I think the Seahawks at 2-2 may make some noise. The 49ers are 2-2. They got a good team, but when you start changing quarterbacks in and out, it's hard.
I think you could have 3 playoff teams that
without a doubt. Yeah.
Yeah. But the one least likely to make it would be the 49ers, I think. I think the Seahawks could squeak into the playoffs.
Yeah, the Seahawks play this week. The Seahawks, they play tonight. They play the Rams. We're recording this on a Thursday. They play the Rams tonight in Seattle. That's going to be a key game for the Seahawks, but also for the Rams. And then let's look at the Cardinals. Arizona hosts the 49ers Sunday, so that'll be a key game for the 49ers, right? If they lose that, they're 2-3. The Cardinals are 5-0, and now you got 3 games to make up in that division, which
I think the 49ers right now in that division I think they kind of know that they're playing for a wild card. I would think.
I would agree. Yeah, I would agree. Unless they beat the Cardinals.
If they beat the Cardinals, yeah. It may be different,
but I don't know if they'll do that playing the game at home in Arizona. So those are your divisions right now. I think it'll be interesting. I want to get your thoughts a little bit. Well, this will be a good segue into the Dallas. Dallas plays the Giants this week, but you remember Jaylon Smith, right? The guy that played linebacker at Notre Dame.
Yeah.
The Cowboys drafted him. I think last year they signed him to a $64 million extension. They released him Tuesday. Okay. Now, there's been a lot of. Why did they do that? Well, they drafted this kid, Micah Parsons, I believe he came out of Penn State. I may have that wrong, as a linebacker, and he's just been fabulous as a rookie. Everything I read is Jaylon Smith's snaps have been going down. I looked at some clips of him playing that some of these pundits were using. He's having a lot of trouble filling holes, and you know all about that, right? Playing off blockers and getting to run fits, and he's been struggling with that. So the consensus was his play has gone down a little bit, and with this rookie linebacker being so good, the Cowboys, even though they owe him $7 million for the rest of this year, next year, the way his contract was written, they would have owed him $10 million even if he was injured. So they took a chance and released him. The reports I read said they tried to trade him, but nobody really wanted him. He turned around yesterday and signed with the Packers. So I want to get your thoughts on that. I mean, I know you probably don't know Jaylon Smith that well, but didn't that sound a little weird to you that they would just flat out release a guy even if they couldn't trade him?
Yeah, I didn't know like kind of about his struggles this year, but prior to this year, I thought I'd heard that
he was a Pro Bowl 2 years ago.
Yeah, he was supposed to be. I thought one of the at least the better players on the Cowboys defense,
right? And
I thought they liked him, So that was really strange. I did see at least one clip of a kind of it looked like a strange play on his part, that people were using to say this is why they released him. But that is a little strange. But
his real problem was he was wearing number 54. He changed to 9 this year. That's what caused the problem. Ridiculous. Yeah, that's what caused the problem.
But that's something that felt a lot of these guys to do that. If they know these guys are going to do it, they can't allow them to do that. But I'm surprised that he didn't go to the Patriots and have another Pro Bowl year after that or something. But if Belichick didn't want to get him, though, that must tell you something about him, right? Because Belichick, you think he'd be willing to...
Well, that's true. I was hoping the Giants would sign him, and the reason I say that is Martinez got hurt. Yeah, I mean, they could have used him at least for this year.
Yeah.
But I guess they didn't. Maybe they tried. I don't know. But he's going to Green Bay, which probably a good move for him. But that leads us into the Giants-Cowboys game this week. Gosh, the game is in Dallas. I find it hard to believe the Giants are going to be able to keep up with Dallas. I mean, Daniel Jones is playing much better. The offense seems to be playing better. But this Dallas team, I mean, their offense is just, you got Amari Cooper. You got CeeDee Lamb. You got tight ends. You got other receivers coming out of the slot. You got Dak Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott. I don't see it being a very close game. What do you think?
I don't think it's going to be close at all. No.
Yeah.
It's good to see Dak Prescott playing, not just playing at a high level, but playing at the best of his career type of level.
Yes,
really,
he is.
Right?
Yeah.
He looks as good as he's ever looked, I think.
Yes, he does.
That's good to see.
Yeah, it's good to see. I'm glad.
Bodes well for the Cowboys, obviously.
It definitely does, and I think the interesting thing about isn't it interesting how when Dak came on in 2016 as a rookie, when Romo got hurt. I think Ezekiel Elliott was also a rookie that year. They ran the ball way more than they threw it, right?
Yeah.
Now they've become more of a passing team. Ezekiel Elliott, I think he's starting to see some of that running back fatigue. This is his, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th year in the league. And most running backs, with the exception of Adrian Peterson, he's an anomaly. Their prime years are 1, 2, 3, 4, and then they start to go downhill because they take so many hits. So and this other running back that the Cowboys have,
Pollard.
Yeah, he's been really good, and in fact, he's run actually a little better than Ezekiel Elliott has. So But this is Dak Prescott's team. I mean, they're a throwing football team. I think they beat the Giants and go to 4-1.
He threw 4 touchdowns last week. I only had 188 yards, but threw 4 touchdowns.
Yeah.
14 to 22. Elliott, though, had a pretty good game last week. 120 carries, 143 yards.
He did.
Touchdown.
He did.
But I agree with you. I think the key to their success would be how the passing game goes.
No question.
I guess if they had to rely on the run, I guess they could do it still because they got Elliott and Pollard, but I feel like they're more of a passing team now than a running team.
I agree. And after the Giants, they go to New England to play the Patriots, and then they have a bye. So they could very easily come out of these next 2 weeks 5-1, go into their bye week, and you know, I think the division is theirs to lose. You know, but the other teams are just not going to make any.
Do you have any comments you'd like to say about the Giants?
Yeah, I do. You know, they completely shocked me last week. I told Joseph, our other co-host, you know, after they lost to the Falcons, which they should have never lost to, I said, looking at their schedule, I think they're going to finish 2-14. The only teams that I could see them even having a chance of beating were the Redskins, the football team, and I forget which other game they were playing. Maybe it was the Eagles or someone.
They play the Bears, Eagles.
Yeah, Bears.
Dolphins.
The Bears was the team that I would thought that they would. All right. Well, now they've won a game, so I told him. I said, now I think they're going to go 3-14. All right. And the reason I say that is because, you know, going into if you look at their first 3 games, the Broncos dominated them. I mean, it wasn't even close, really. The Redskin game, they should have won that game. Okay, guy jumps offside on a field goal they missed. The Falcons, they had the lead and couldn't stop them, so they should have been 2-1. All right. Now they beat the Saints, played a very good game. Their offense didn't turn the ball over. Daniel Jones, 402 yards passing, 28 of 40, 2 touchdowns. The only interception was a Hail Mary at the end of the first half, which I don't even count that as an interception. So, you know, they shocked the daylights out of me. Maybe they're starting to gel a little bit, but I don't want to get false hopes. You know, I just think that I think at the very best, they're going to give the Cowboys a good game, meaning they'll hang in there. You know, they won't get blown out. But I still see the Cowboys winning by 10, maybe 14. If last week against the Saints was an anomaly, I see the Cowboys winning by 21, 24 points.
If the Giants somehow beat the Cowboys, do you all of a sudden allow yourself to get hope for some type of run here?
Well,
or are you going to be?
Well, I have to say, if the Giants go into Dallas and beat the Cowboys, assuming it's not because the Cowboys throw 5 interceptions, okay? I mean, you got to give them a little bit of credit if they do that. That tells me that maybe they're starting to gel a little bit, you know?
They still have such a tough schedule. Then they host the Rams.
Oh, yeah.
Then they host the Panthers, which they can beat. Then they have to go to Kansas City.
Right.
They host the Raiders.
Right.
They have to go to Tampa Bay.
Right.
I mean,
they got to play the Chargers.
Later in the year, they play the Chargers in LA.
Right.
Of course, they have to play the Cowboys again. Yeah,
the Eagles twice.
Yeah, they can beat them both those times. I think. But they can beat Washington again. They can beat the Bears. But they just have a tough schedule.
All right, let me say this. I said they would be 2-15 after the Falcon loss. Realistically, if the Giants play the rest of the season like they played against the Saints, which is no guarantee, but let's assume that they've got some things corrected. They can beat the Panthers.
Yeah.
They can beat the Eagles. They can beat the Redskins, okay? They're not going to beat the Chiefs. They're not going to beat the Chargers. I don't see them beating the Raiders.
Dolphins they can beat.
They can beat the Dolphins.
Fine.
I don't see them beating the Buccaneers, okay?
That's an extra 5 plus the one. It'd be 6 wins.
Right. So I mean, I think they could be maybe 5 and what is it? 5-12, maybe 6-11. But that's all I see.
Like if they can beat the Cowboys, right, they'll be 2-3.
Right.
Then let's say they lose the Rams, right, 2-4. But then if they can beat the Panthers,
3-4,
and then they go into the toughest part of the schedule, though. Like even then, like I don't see them making the playoffs.
No,
I mean, I don't see. Because they go into that tough stretch. And if they can get out of that stretch of Kansas City, Las Vegas, and Tampa Bay with 1 win maybe or something, then at the end of their schedule is a little easier. That's when they play teams like the Bears and the Redskins again, the Eagles twice.
Right. The Dolphins.
So maybe, but
we'll see. Yeah, we'll see. I think Daniel Jones he's put together 3 good games in a row, and I think if they can get some help around him, if that offensive line can gel a little bit. They have a shot. But not a shot of being in the playoffs, but a shot at maybe winning enough games to make it look respectable.
Winning enough games where they don't get rid of Daniel Jones.
Well, they're not. I don't think they're going to get rid of him now, but you never know. I do.
Get rid of the GM still, though, you said.
Well, the GM's gone. I don't see him staying at all. Unless the Giants go on some spectacular run. Which,
even if they go on some spectacular run and make the playoffs, does that change? You want to have another year with the GM? I mean, he's made you can't change the decisions he's made. He's made bad decisions, right?
No, he has.
He's fixed the offensive lines at times, so that stuff doesn't change.
That's true. But you got to say, if they make the playoffs, that means that some of these decisions he made have panned out, right? They started to play better.
I guess.
I guess what I'm saying is the Giants are a conservative enough franchise where if they made the playoffs, they probably wouldn't fire him.
That's a good point. They are pretty conservative.
Yeah, they're not going to fire him. If this was any other franchise, I think he'd be gone already. But that's beside the point. All right, so that kind of sums us up for week 4 recap. So let's just touch real quickly, Nathan. Look at the schedule coming up this week, and give me 2 games that you're really excited to watch this week.
All right, let's see here.
I'll go first while you're looking. I think for me, I'm really interested in seeing the Browns at the Chargers. I think that's going to be a good game, and I'm really looking forward to watching that game. Obviously, the Buffalo Bills at the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, that's another one that I think is going to be a really good football game, and will tell us a lot about both those teams. And I would say those are the only 2. Maybe tonight, the Rams and the Seahawks. But outside of that, just those other 2.
All right, I agree with those 2. I'll throw in some other ones.
Okay.
I'm kind of interested to see the Cardinals and 49ers.
Okay.
The Cardinals should win that pretty easily, but it's a division game. It's a good division. I'm kind of interested to see that. The Giants and Cowboys, for the reasons we discussed.
Right.
Not that it has huge playoff implications for both teams, but I'm just interested to see if the Giants can go off that success. Right. Yeah. And then the last one I'd be interested to see is kind of the Broncos and Steelers, because I just want to see like if what's going to happen, if it's going to happen like I think it's going to happen. I think the Broncos will lose that game.
I agree.
But if the Broncos beat the Steelers and beat them handily, like I said, that's kind of the first, what you could say, pretty good team the Broncos have played.
Right.
That they've won. I mean, outside the Ravens, which they lost that game.
Right.
So that's what you kind of see what the Broncos do against their first, like, or one of their few very pretty good teams that they've played.
Right.
So those are the other games I'd add. And then the Packers and Bengals looks interesting because they're both 3-1, but I don't think that's going to be much of a game.
I don't think it is either. I think we're going to find out a little bit about the Bengals.
But if the Bengals can win that,
if the Bengals can keep it competitive.
Yeah.
I mean, if they have a chance to win in the fourth quarter, that's a win for the Bengals, I think. And also for everybody's information, this is the last week that there will be no buys. Next week, week 6, is when the buys begin. The first 4 teams that will be on bye in week 6 will be the Falcons, the Saints, the Jets, and the 49ers. And then as we go forward, we'll have more bye weeks until we get to the very end of the season where the bye weeks will be over. So that'll be interesting too. So that's our recap for week number 4. We hope you enjoyed listening to it. Hey, let us know what you think. Send us some comments. There's lots of ways that you can connect with us. You can connect with us on Twitter. @PressBoxPod is our Twitter account. Nathan's put up some good polls up there, some good questions about certain games. Hit us up there. I know there's a lot of you that are following us. Just send us a tweet. Or tell us what you think. Instagram. I mean, I'm an old guy, so I don't really get on Instagram, but I know it's probably the most popular social media app out there. @PressBoxPod is our Instagram handle. Hit us up there as well. Let us know what you think of some of the things Nathan's been doing on there. I mean, he's done a tremendous job with this podcast, and we want to hear from you. We want to know what you think about some of the things we've said today. Who are your favorite teams? What do you think about your team's performance and their chances coming up during the rest of the season? And then, of course, our YouTube channel, the Pressbox Podcast, where Nathan has put up a lot of full episodes as well as some key clips from certain other episodes. That's another good way to communicate with us as well. Ask us your fantasy questions. We want to hear from you. Let us know what you think. So we hope you enjoyed this episode. We'll be back again next week to recap week number 4 in the NFL, or week number 5 in the NFL, I guess it would be. So for Nathan, for Joseph, who is not with us today, and for all that we do here on the Pressbox Podcast, we thank you, and we'll see you next week.